Straight to business this weekend. This weekend in Stable Duel, we've got a lot to get to, so we can't even mess around this weekend, Matt. Just me and Matt DeSantis, Gino Bacola here with you. Shout out to our buddy Barry Spears. He's going to be heading down to the Pegasus this weekend. And Matt, we have a lot of options for Stable Duel contests, but there's one big one that we're all really going to be focusing on this weekend over at the Pegasus on Saturday.
Absolutely. It's the elephant in the room or the Pegasus in the room, however you want to say it. But $40,000 contest, biggest contest yet for Stable Duel. Definitely excited. Low $50 entry. So it's really a great contest. Gets a lot of people engaged. Can't wait.
Top 90 players will double their money. Top 90. And the first payout is $15,000. The top 6 finishers will all make over $1,000. And you know something about big money, my friend. I got to give you a shout out. We're recording this obviously early on Friday morning. Thursday night, you had a fantastic night over at Sam Houston.
Hey, blind squirrels find nuts every once in a while, but it was it was a great night at Sam Houston. Hit the late pick 4 straight up. And so that was it was a big night. I got to say, I got to give a shout out to Jessica Paquette, who gave a little bit of an insider info tidbit on Twitter on that last race. So that was a big help. And Sam Houston, a lot of fun contests there too. And that was one where, that was really a limited number of participants in that $30 game. And so another great overlay opportunity for people playing. So a lot of great chances on Stable Duel all throughout the week.
You had 4 straight winners to close out the night, which is just really impressive. So let's keep that good mojo rolling on over through this weekend, Matt. So normally we'll go through Friday and Saturday plays for a couple different tracks, but because of the big focus at Gulfstream, and then on Sunday at Sam Houston, Sam Houston has a big day of racing, and there's a big contest there also. $50 in the Sam Houston Festival Day contest, $7,500 in cash prizes. So for me, I'm always going to get involved in 1 or 2 on Friday, but my focus is going to be on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. So I'm just going to give out 1 or 2 plays for Friday. I figured it's probably best for us to both give out a few for Saturday and for Sunday. That makes the most sense, I think. So
absolutely.
Let's jump into Friday. Let's start to build the bankroll a little bit. And I think you said you have a play over at Tampa.
I do have a play at Tampa. Yeah.
Okay,
$15 game. Yeah. Let's go to race 3. Okay. And this follows up I think a trend that both Barry and myself and you talk about a lot, which is attacking these maiden claiming races a lot of times, because you can often find some value there. And let's go to the number 6 horse, Colors. This is a horse that's making its debut in a $16,000 maiden claiming, a mile and a 16th. And this is a horse that just has absolutely bonkers trainer ROI. And so this is one where when I look at this field, the next horse down that actually just scratched, Had Right, who was the 7 horse there. That is a horse that had been finishing second routinely. And you take Had Right out of the equation, there really isn't much else in this race in terms of other horses that scare me in terms of the form that they've had. So Colors is a first time runner, trainer Antonio Machado. How do you like this? Winning 25% of first time starters with a $8.88 ROI.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to give you $2. You give me back $8.88. That sounds like a good deal.
Exactly. No. And the trainer jockey combination, granted only 16 times, but they're returning a $2.92 ROI. So winning kind of 5 out of 16 races together this year at Tampa, really good percentages. This is a horse that honestly has looked very strong in workouts as well. So I just thought, you look at this field, particularly now that the favorite has scratched, this is a wide open field. I think you're 6-1, you're getting $5,000, but I think this is a win candidate. And so this is one where I don't mind spending a little bit more money, because now that the favorite's out, really has opened up.
So nice way to get things started. If you're playing at Tampa early on in the contest, we won't have to spend up a whole ton for Colors. Number 6, getting the job done, the first time starter, and hopefully only going to cost you $5,000. You get a few points. You pick things up there for Matt right off the bat at Tampa for Friday. So while we're talking Friday, I'm going to head to Santa Anita, and we are going to take a look at where we're going to go. I'm going to go to race number 4 at Santa Anita on Friday, Matt. Let's get over to Santa Anita. So I'm looking at a horse who's only going to cost us 12-1 on our morning line. So 750, not gonna cost us a whole lot. We're not gonna have to spend up on this one. I'm looking at Swiss Sue, the number 4 in race, or excuse me, the number 6 in race number 4. So pulling up Santa Anita, race number 4. We're gonna go 6 furlongs on the turf course here. Swiss Sue. Now, this one comes off of a recent effort going 6.5 on the main track at Del Mar. Flashed a little bit of speed that day, but faded. That race was actually pretty tough. We've already seen that race come back live. Multiple next out winners in that one. Augusta Melody came back to win a 50 starter. Doncic, shout out to Luca, also came back to win a 50 starter there up at Golden Gate. So comes out of a live race. And look at the turf race in August. That's the one that kind of stands out to me, Matt, for Swiss Sue. Now, Swiss Sue on October the 31st, speed inside. They lined up 5 across the racetrack, and this horse was too deep in between and sort of got shuffled all the way back. Legit recent trouble. He's one of the quicker in this field. Look at the last 3 races. You've been getting really good speed, and there's just not that much pace signed on in the rest of the field. You go through, you've got Cotopaxi, who's coming out of mile race and is more of a presser right next door. Explosive isn't really fast. Allegria is not quick, but that's a street up by where I went to high school in Sierra Madre. So shout out there to LaSalle. Priano, probably the one to catch. I think Swiss Sue can sit maybe second or third in here and get a really nice trip going 6 furlongs. So it's Santa Anita, only going to cost you $750 to get Swiss Sue in the mix in race number 4, the number 6. So yeah, it's difficult sometimes at Santa Anita to find horses like that, Matt, because we talked about sometimes you can have really short fields. So, hey, anytime I can get a horse that's double-digit odds, I gotta make sure I throw them into my lineup, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Just opens up the rest of your card. It gives you so much more flexibility picking other horses in those other races then.
So that is for me over on Friday at Santa Anita, but I believe we both have a play at Sam Houston for Friday night, right?
We do,
so
yeah.
Tell us where you want to head for Friday night over at Sam Houston.
So let's go to race 6, horse 6 at Sam Houston on Friday night. And this is the horse Mom's Pass. And so this is a 10-1 horse. And it's only going to cost you $1,000 on Stable Duel. Again, always trying to find that value in different places. So this is a horse that this is an angle I often like to play, which is a horse that had been running on one surface, went back to another surface, and is now returning to the stronger surface. You typically get a little bit of value there because the horse has typically not run particularly well on the other surface.
Yep.
And so
muddied up form lines, right?
Exactly. And so this is what's happening with Mom's Pass. You look, those last 2 turf starts, mid-60s, upper 60s by our speed figures, that's right there with everybody else in the field. Now, it just happened to run some clunkers on dirt after that. But if you look at those 2 turf races, showed good form, showed the ability to be on or around the board. At 10-1, you're getting good value for $1,000. We often talk, you don't always have to pick winners with these horses. You just have to pick horses that aren't going to cost you a lot of money, that are going to get you positive points. And so I really like Mom's Pass in this spot. I think that this is, like I said, a horse that is also pretty consistent, 2 for 3 hitting the board at Sam Houston, 3 for 6 hitting the board at this distance. The rest of the field is not particularly overwhelming. And this is a horse that actually has a lot of experience. And if you look, hits the board 13 out of 27 races. For a horse that's running in this level of race, that's a pretty good, ROI to some extent. So I think this is a field that wasn't particularly overwhelming. The mid-60s buyer speed figures puts it right there with everybody else. And I think the return to turf, typically you see a nice time for Mom's Pass. So I like this horse in race 6 at Sam Houston.
Yeah, and what's nice is you sort of know, like you can make a lot of excuses for her with her running style. She's very, you know what you're going to get from her. She's going to launch a late run. If they just go a little too slow and the race shape is against her, she's not going to win. But anytime there's a little bit of pace, she's going to pass horses. She's a great type of horse to use in Stable Duel because of that. She's got a consistency. And you just, like, when you're handicapping, some days you'll just know, like, oh, you know what? There's not a lot of speed in here. She probably doesn't have a shot. But
Right.
as a gambler, you have to be able to look back at those races and be like, oh, yeah, that was the race where she just wasn't going to ever be able to fit there,
Yeah.
So great
Yeah.
spot for Mom's Pass here, and it will only cost you $1,000 to use in your stable dual lineup off that nice 10-1 morning line. I'm going to go to race number 9, and I'm going to take a look at a big pricing here also. I will go towards the outside with the number 7, who is 15-1 on the morning line and will only cost you $500 in your stable dual lineup. So these are made in $25,000 claimers. If you look at Smart Battle, so he debuts and he has some trouble in his debut, slow start and just never really gets involved. Then he's doesn't run from September to January. He shows back up in January and he shows up for a new barn. And I thought he ran pretty well this day. We'll take a look at some of the replay right now. So Smart Battle is the one in here. He draws the rail and he kind of like a step slow. You can see from the inside, but he has to move through the inside and he moves to the lead. And this is one of those things where if he drew the rail, he probably wouldn't have moved as much to the lead here. But because of where he is, he's kind of forced inside. If he drew to the outside a little bit more, he'd probably be up kind of pressing in an easier spot. So now he's down on the inside. And look, there are, 4 other horses lined up across the track next to him. That's not an easy spot to be, having to push all the way through. You're dealing with pressure all the way across the racetrack. What I like is, he cuts the corner at the top of the lane in a minute here, and he's trying really, really hard. This was his first start for this barn. Now it was his first start in a few months. Now he's going to go as a first-time gelding. He's going to go second start off the bench. Very easily, he could have just backed up and, right there, kind of gotten shuffled back and finished last or right at the back. But he digs in, and he's still trying down on the inside. I think this horse has an opportunity to step forward off of that effort. You look around in this race, maybe the 9 Lab Rat, who's another one who has some speed in here, but I figure he'll be forwardly placed. Lab Rat and him are probably the quickest in here. Smart Battle should give us a really good run for our money, Matt, at 15-1.
I like it. I like those horses. Always great to see, when there's that change in the barn. Sometimes it's that second time out really perks up. But yeah, you like to see, and this is something that sometimes can't quite always be quantified. And I think that's why it's difficult for some people who are really into analytics to appreciate, but just seeing a horse that digs in. You can't put an emphasis on it. There are some horses, you watch them and they quit as soon as they get past. And there are other horses that get past and quite frankly, they get pissed off and they just start running. And, I like horses that dig in. And so even if they may not quite be the pedigree or speed at some of the other horses in that race, I know they're going to give it 110%. I like that play a lot.
Yeah, thank you. We go Smart Battle there, 15-1, only going to cost us $500 in our stable dual lineup. So that's for Sam Houston on Friday night. But the big game that we're going to be focusing on this weekend is at Gulfstream Park, $40,000 in prizes, Matt. And what is it, 15,000 plus to the winner?
15,000 to the winner. You can't beat that. And like you said, top 90 double their money. So you can't argue with that at all. Great opportunity. Even if you don't win big, you're going to win small in all likelihood. So that's the beauty of those stable duel contests. It's just taking $50, turning it into 100, taking 100 the next time out, turning it into 200. You can build up a bankroll doing that. Okay,
I'm going to give out, I think, 2 or 3 plays for Saturday over at Gulfstream Park. But let's start with you. If you have a couple plays, where do you want to head for a few of yours?
Yeah, we're going to dive right into the stakes races. So I'm going to go to race 7.
Yep.
And this is a turf race. It's 1.5 miles and the WL McKnight. I really like Bama Breeze in this race. And I'll tell you, there's a few reasons why. It's the number 6 horse, and it's 12-1, $750. Listen, there's some big prices in this race, in this card. Everybody knows it. People are Team Knicks Go, Team Life is Good. They're going to cost you, $9,600, $9,800 in that last race. So you're going to need to save some money in certain places. I think this turf race It's funny. Race 5 is kind of the female equivalent of this race, mile and a half on turf. And this is for the boys. Race 5, there's no pace at all in that race. This one, there's actually a decent amount of pace. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little hot up front. When you're talking about horses that go mile and a half, they're not really accustomed to going really hot up front. And so you can easily get worn out going that distance if there's some pressure. I think you look at this, horses like Aban, who's the morning line favorite, King Cause, Oriental Tiger, Temple, all are going to be forwardly placed, all going to be up front. It's going to put a little bit more pressure on Aban, who obviously just won at 2 miles last time out. But why do I like Bama Breeze? The best closer in the field, really by far and away, just about the only closer in the field.
True.
And has the best late kick, should get a nice pace to run behind to take advantage of that. It's coming off a little bit of a layoff, but the trainer's winning 24% coming off those layoffs. This is a horse that beat Glenn County, who's at 3-1, and is kind of the second favorite in this race. And I'm totally fading Glenn County. That's a horse that I always think just under-delivers, in my opinion, in a lot of races. So Bama Breeze at 12-1. I think this is a horse that is absolutely a potential win candidate if the pace gets too hot. And if the pace is just, regular to slightly above average, I still think this horse is going to run into something and is going to hit the board. And so for $750 at 12-1, I just really like the play in this particular race.
Bama Breeze, 12-1. Nice spot in a very contentious Gulfstream card on Saturday. While we're in race 7, I'm just going to go right next door to race number 8 for my play. And this is a horse, I was a big fan of this filly a few years back, Matt. Number 5, Four Graces.
That's my pick to win. I love it.
There we go. So Four Graces in the middle to the end of 2020, man, she was getting good. Yep. She won multiple graded stakes races. She beat Edgeway. She beat Sconsin. She came back in the 8 Bells. In that race, I remember because I was closing and I hit a really good pick 4 or pick 5 that day. I was closing the race with Sconsin and Four Graces, and I was watching on my phone, and the internet went out when the race started. And I'm closing, and I was alive. Like Sconsin was going to pay much more than Four Graces was. And I'll never forget, because it's like, oh no. And I'm like trying to get it back on and I can't figure it out. I have to call my mom. Mom, can you pull this race up for me real quick? And I'm like freaking out. And I'm like, who won the race? And she's like, the 5, Sconsin. I'm like, what? No. Okay, cool. I was like, I remember her telling me it was nice. It was a couple grand that day. Nice. But nonetheless, Four Graces, really talented. I mean, that race, there was a ton of speed in that field. And then I think that took a little something out of her. The Raven run, she didn't run that well. She obviously had some physical issues because she basically missed the whole 2021.
Yep.
She came back and ran once in June in the Rocks Leanna, and she didn't run all that well. And then she was gone from June of 2021 to January of 2022. And then she shows back up in January. And so she hadn't run for 6 months. She only has one race in 16 months. And she's the 5 in here. So she has to need this race, right, Matt? I mean, there's she's going to get so much out of this. She's the 5. She's, a fine start. She's kind of in between horses there a little bit, and she ends up sitting. And Starship Nala, who's also in this race, you can see Starship Nala is about a length in front of her. That's the 7 into the outside. This isn't the easiest spot to be in either, Matt, right? You're kind of in between horses.
Yep.
You want to go because you're fresh and you're maybe a little bit keen off the bench, but there's nowhere to go. You're trapped. You're covered up on the outside. You can't go anywhere inside because you're going to run right up on heels. So you can see you're just kind of waiting, and he's already having to back up a little bit, right? He's backed up. He's backed up. He's backed up. At this point, okay, now you get a little bit of room and you're able to angle to the outside, but it's pretty much over, unfortunately, right? You're able to get that room, but now the 7, Starship Nala, gets that jump on you. And
exactly.
This is the point when Four Graces is supposed to be getting tired off of the long layoff, right? And she just kind of digs in between horses. She wins the battle. She almost wins the race.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like she's done. And then all of a sudden, when the competition comes up on her outside, she gets really game, just like what you were talking about earlier, right? One of these things where she battles, she's on it, she's classy. I wouldn't be shocked if she gets bet a little bit in this spot too, second off the bench. I'm not that worried that she got a low buyer number last time out. You know, like it doesn't bother me that much in situations like that because I was expecting her to need that race a little bit and take a step forward. Four Graces is 5-1 on the morning line. She'll cost us 6,000. I thought that was a perfect type comeback race to take a step forward.
Yep, I totally agree. I think this race really sets up well for her too. I'm not overwhelmed by the favorite in this race. I think there might be a little bit of speed up front, and so I think if she has, a similar trip in that she sits behind some of that speed, maybe a slightly better position, so she's not having to check up and not having to, feel boxed in or anything like that. I think this is a horse that like I said, this is my pick to win this race. I really like this horse, and I think if that 2020 campaign, I mean, this is the best horse in the race by far. If you just look at what this horse is capable of, there's nobody else who's capable of doing what she's done. So really like Four Graces in the spot.
Four Graces for me and Matt on Saturday. Where do you want to head next, Matt?
Well, let's head to race 10. And this is another one of the stakes races. And this is the Fred Hopper, I believe, stakes. And so we're going to go to the far outside to the ninth post and Girolamo's Attack at 12-1. This is a horse. We talk a lot about horses that the morning line is going to get bet down. This morning line, I would be stunned if this horse is not bet down. Because this horse ran a clunker last time out a mile and an eighth. This horse does not do well at a mile and an eighth. This horse is a miler, and specifically a one-turn miler. This is a horse that is 3 for 3 winning at this distance. This is a horse that likes the outside post position. The one-turn mile should set up perfectly. The top two are very, very strong in this field, but guess what? Girolamo's Attack beat one of those top two, Fearless, two starts ago in that one-turn mile. So this is a horse that likes Gulfstream Park, that likes the one-turn mile, likes the distance, is going back to that distance. At 12-1, you're getting the far outside post. So this is a horse that tends to like to be forwardly placed, should be able to get placed where he wants. So there's a lot to like, I think, with that 9 horse. And like I said, the fact that he's already beaten the one horse Fearless head-to-head, I think that just, and then it's a Safi Joseph horse. And that's one of those things where outside of the state of Florida, I don't always trust Safi, but in South Florida, Safi Joseph Jr. is pretty money. And he tends to know what he's doing, and he tends to place his horses in a good spot. And so 12-1, I would not be surprised if this horse goes off closer to 6-1 by post time. And so I think you're getting a lot of value there for $750 on Stable Duel, and a horse that is absolutely, I think, in the top 3, potentially top 2. And if things maybe break down up front, who knows? But or if he's able to get to the front and control the pace, who knows? But I just really like this horse a lot from that outside post.
I think you're probably going to get like half, right? Because I mean, the 2 horses that we know are going to get bet obviously are the 8 and the 1, right? I mean, and then Liam will get bet. I wouldn't be shocked if Girolamo's Attack is like the 3rd choice or 4th choice in here. You know, it wouldn't shock me at all because nobody else, like Dennis's Moment is fine,
But Dennis's Moment is stepping up in distance. I think there's some questions about that. I mean, anytime that horse goes over a mile, it doesn't work out well. And
nobody else is exciting. Nobody else makes you all that. Like you start eliminating horses in the field, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to use the 1 or the 8 because they're probably going to be a little too expensive to spend up for. Then who else am I looking at in this field? And it's absolutely the 9. It's absolutely Girolamo's Attack. That's a great call there for Matt in race number 10. So where do I want to head next? I'm going to go to race number. I'll go back one to race number 9, and we'll take a look at. I'll give you 2 possibilities for however, if you're looking, and if you're maybe you put in multiple lineups, maybe you're trying to figure out what to do with your lineup and you can't really work it out. Regal Glory is the horse to beat, no doubt about it. I think there are 2. If you have not a lot to spend, the 5 giftless is a little bit interesting because she's actually faced really nice company when she was 3. Her most recent efforts are all really, really good. You just have the layoff to worry about. She hasn't run since June. I would have loved to see one race maybe earlier in January or in December to get a little prep in her. But with her running style, she'll probably just kind of sit back, launch, and make one late run. She won't cost you much. If you're starting to get tight where you can spend, maybe gift list. And the other one would be the 7 Nicest.
Yep.
It's really hard to knock her form since coming over into the US. She shows up in October over at Keeneland, and that's after running in back-to-back group stakes races at Ascot and at the Curragh, where she was third in both of them. She ran into a horse named Snowfall, who was absolutely incredible last year in the middle part of that year. So you make excuse for the race at Keeneland, you run into a yielding turf course over there, and then you go to Del Mar, you hook Niji Blanche and Luck. Both of them have come out of those races to win next time out and look really impressive doing that. Luck was barely beaten in a grade 1 prior to that race. And then on December the 26th, that race is supposed to be on the turf. It gets taken off. Nicest still runs well. I think a lot of times in some bigger races like this too, there's like an East Coast bias with West Coast turf horses, right? I think, and I can agree most of the time, the turf divisions out West aren't as deep and they're not as strong. So you'll see horses that'll win and they'll beat graded stakes runners and they'll win in tough spots, but those races probably aren't as difficult as some of the other races out in the Midwest or on the East Coast. This horse is, I think, a little bit different though, because this isn't like a West Coast horse, right? We know that this horse has some class and the ability to compete with legitimate group stakes horses all over the world. We've already seen it. So it doesn't really bother me that this is just a horse coming from out West. And at 6-1 on the morning line, 5,000, we're right on that stable dual average of what we need. If you're sitting in a good spot in this race, then maybe you use Nicest. For me, on one of my lineups, I'll probably spend up in a couple other races, and maybe I'll just take a shot with gift list and hope I can hit the board here with a horse who's not going to cost me a whole lot, and I just need to pick up some points with this one.
Yeah, really like that Nicest play. I think that's it's cutting back in distance a little bit. It has a nice charge at the end. Make one big move, and so really like that horse. And one of the things we'll talk about, I think, throughout is there's a lot of races on this card where there could be a pretty hot pace up in front. And so you want to look for those deep closers and you want to look for horses that have a good late kick. And whether it's a horse like Nicest, a horse like Giftless, you want to find those horses that sit a little further back off the pace and then are going to give you one big run. Nicest, I really like that play. And I think that sets up well for that horse.
So I've got one more at Gulfstream for Saturday. Do you have any more you want to talk for Saturday?
I do. I have one more. And I mean, I got about 10 more. We could do 2
hours on the show for this one.
Yeah. But let's go to race 11 and I'll do kind of what you did. And this is the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. And I'll give you 2. I'll give you one if you're trying to really save up and one if you're, and we'll start with the one actually, Space Traveler.
Nice.
This is a horse that's drawn the inside rail, but is getting blinkers. And that's a great combination, I think, because this is a horse that will, because you worry about that inside rail sometimes if a horse does not have natural tactical speed, that the horse will get shuffled back. The addition of blinkers, I think, mitigates any of those concerns. I think Space Traveler will get placed forwardly, but not on the lead. And the lead, I think, could get a little contentious. And so, but he's not going to get shuffled back too far in the pack. So this is a horse I just really like. It's a horse that has run behind some slow paces and not really been able to show off the kick that he has. And so I just think this is a horse that, like I said, has run up against very strong competition. You see those 3 grade 1 efforts coming right out of the bat last year, coming from overseas. And then at the Fort Lauderdale, that grade 2 just ran behind a glacial pace. And so I just think this is a horse that's going to get the right type of setup. The inside blinkers will help. 12-1 morning line, $750. I think is a good value.
Space Traveler, I agree, and I've got Space Traveler in all my exotics. I've got him picked second in this race. I think he's a must use. And you know what? This isn't. So it's a very contentious race. It's not the strongest race in the world, right? No. For like the Pegasus grade 1. I mean, Colonel Liam is obviously super classy and there are a lot of ways to go. But if you're comparing this to like a Breeders' Cup race or that type of race, right? This feels more like, I mean, there are probably a couple real legitimate grade 1 horses in here. This is maybe more like a strong grade 2.
Yep.
than it is even like the best of the best of the best of the turf. So Space Traveler is pretty classy. He's knocked heads with some really good horses. I think he's a must use in late exotics.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you're right. That's exactly how I felt about this race, which is I think it's going to be a fantastic race. I think it's going to be, and it's a very evenly matched field in a lot of
Mhm.
ways with some really interesting dynamics going on in terms of who's going to take the lead, et cetera. But, and you have the Colonel Liam subplot in terms of him coming back after 7 months. And so, there's a lot going on there. But I agree. It's not, this is not a turf race up at Saratoga in the summer,
Yeah.
with some Pat Brown monsters and, that sort of thing. So, I think Space Traveler makes a lot of sense. The other one I'll mention, this is my pick to win, is Sacred Life. This is a horse I really like. It's 6-1. It's going to cost you $5,000. I'm not really sold on Colonel Liam. And I think that's what this race comes down to some
Mhm.
extent. If you're not sold on Colonel Liam, then you have to look elsewhere. And I just am always very hesitant about horses coming off significant layoffs, even when they're Todd Pletcher trained. Sacred Life is a horse that just has a great closing kick. And again, the race should set up well for Sacred Life to make one big move and be able to do that. And so, ran into some trouble in a few races, just, in terms of traffic, but, showed a lot of class in the Knickerbocker 2-back. And I just think, like I said, it's less so that I think this is a grade 1 winning horse, maybe, and more so, I just think this race sets up really well for Sacred
Yeah.
Life, and I think he can make a move. So those are the two, depending on your budget, to think about playing in race 11.
Yeah, the horse, while we're in race number 11, that I'm going to speak of, because I'm with you. I'm Colonel Liam. He can beat me. You
Yep.
know, if he beats me at 5-2 or 2-1, and there are 5-2, 2-1 shots, I'll find other days that I like more.
Yep.
I like Hit the Road right next
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull up the last time we saw him race on October the 2nd. And he has a little bit of sneaky trouble in here this day. He's the 3 in this race, and this was in the City of Hope Mile. He finished behind Mo Forza, and just kind of sort of watch the trip that he has in here. So as a 3, you could see they're trying to get a little aggressive with him. They wanted to kind of show some speed, but unfortunately, he's kind of caught in between 3 other horses who are all showing speed, and see, he's got to back out of it. And see, he has to take back. And now all of a sudden, instead of being 2 or 3 lengths in front, now he's dead last.
Yep.
He's pinned inside, dead last at the back of a small field, and now he's up on heels already. I mean, that's a brutal first quarter mile for a horse going long on the turf. And this was the race that was going to set him up. Well, and we'll watch this race. He actually runs really well in here.
Yep.
He was going to be set up for a big race in the Breeders' Cup, Matt. I liked him in the Breeders' Cup. I honestly thought he was very live. Yeah. And then a few days before, there's a small issue. They have to scratch him out of the Breeders' Cup. So really unlucky. Yeah. They get him going. They get him back ready to rock. He's entered for opening day at Santa Anita. And then the rain comes and those races get taken off the grass. So he has to scratch out of there. He's been really unlucky as of late. You can see he starts to get going now, but he's just got to have a bad trip. It's unfortunate because he's got to move all the way around to the outside while Mo Forza is able to get the jump on him. And that's a nice horse, Mo Forza, that we're talking about. Having to go from the back, then all the way around in a small field like this, and he's still coming. Smooth Like Straight, who he's right there on the wire with, was second in the Breeders' Cup. Just to flatter that form and to show you how good some of these milers were out on the West Coast. Now, there are 2 major question marks that I'm going to have with Hit the Road. But I do think that those are built into his price because he's 8-1.
Yep.
We don't really know if he's just a true miler, right? He's a mile in the 8th. I don't have any I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. But when horses get used to that mile, if he launches, sometimes that 1/8 of a mile could be the difference. Absolutely. It's at least worth discussing. And then the fact that the only time we saw him leave Southern California, he didn't run all that well.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's been an instance where we've seen him go outside of California over and over and over and run poorly.
Right.
It's just that the one race at Keeneland in the Maker's Mark, which was a grade 1, he was favored that day. And he was coming off of a good effort in the grade 1 race prior to that. He was 5th. the race wasn't terrible. He just was a little bit flat. So I don't know if those are like a thing, but it's at least worth mentioning. If this horse was 4-1, I'd have a lot more concerns with that. But at 8-1, those, I feel like, you know what? Those are already worked into that price.
Yep. No, I very much so like Hit the Road. I remember that race distinctly that you just showed, and just thinking, oh, what a terrible trip, because I kind of like that horse at that price too. And if you were watching, I mean, he was making up more ground than Mo Forza was. I mean, because and you're right, it was just Mo Forza got the jump and was on the inside and was in, and so. Hit the Road's a very, very nice horse. I mean, the distance is the question. Horses are particular about milers. It's always funny. So many horses, you can move them around a little bit on distance. Milers are milers, man. I mean, they just put them to 7 furlongs or to 1.125 miles, and they freak out. So, but you're getting a great jockey in Tyler Gaffleone. You talked earlier about making that move too soon. Tyler knows this track well, and that's actually one of the nice things. Yes, he's a West Coast turf horse, but he's getting a Gulfstream rider.
That's a key point, right?
And he understands when to make the move and how that turf plays. So it's not as if, because Umberto Rispoli and Kent DeSormo are coming into Gulfstream on Saturday and running in different races.
Yep.
It's not like he's getting one of those two who's a West Coast jock coming in. He's getting a local jockey who knows the course and knows when to push the button.
Yep, that's a great point there. So Hit the Road, who is 8-1 on the morning line, is only going to cost us $3,000 to use in our stable dual lineups. So that's the big contest at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Matt and I could sit here and go through the full card for Gulfstream Park.
Oh my God, yes.
I was going to say, I'm sure, Matt, you have plug some of the additional content that you have in case people need some extra help with Gulfstream for Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the Win Place Show podcast and YouTube channel, and I already have my Gulfstream my Gulfstream and Pegasus World Cup previews up. So if you go to the Win Place Show on YouTube, if you want to go to podcast platform of your choice, download it. You can get that there. You can also go to my website, amalfimedia.com, and you can get picks for all 12 races. I do a little paragraph write up about each race and give you my win, place, and show selections. I always make sure to include stable dual values next to each of the horses, so you know how much you're going to be paying for that. So it helps you build your stable. And this is a card with so much value, I think, on it. There's a lot of great races. There's, obviously the headliner is going to be Life is Good and Knicks Go, and rightfully so. But there's a lot of really strong races underneath on this card, and really excited about this.
Well, Matt, we normally just talk Friday and Saturday, but we finished up a little bit early. Why not dish out a play or two for Sunday over at Sam Houston? Sunday, Sam Houston has a very big game as well. It is $50 to enter, $7,500 in cash prizes. So, let's get out there and take a look while we have a few extra minutes. And why don't you tell us one or two of the plays that you have for Sunday for Sam Houston?
Yeah, Houston Ladies Classic, always a great day. So why don't we go to race 4, and we'll look at the number 7 horse in race 4, which is Mac Be Quick. And I have to give a shout out. Yesterday, you mentioned the win that I had at Stable Duel at Sam Houston. You know what kicked me off? You know what really got me jump started? The horse G's turn. It's all you, Gino. It all comes back to you.
It was my turn.
It was your turn. It was your turn. G's turn. Won by 8.5 lengths too. I mean, dominating effort.
Built you up those extra bonus points.
Always feels good when you get 68 instead of just like a 60.
Yeah.
So I really like the number 7 horse in the 4 race. Mac Be Quick. This is a horse that's going off at 6-1, $5,000. And I think this is a win candidate. And that's part of the reason, like I said, a lot of times you and I and Barry will try to give those double-digit odds horses, those long odds, and try to give you some horses that are going to save you some money. I think this is a horse that I really like to win in this spot, so I don't mind paying up a little bit more. A couple of reasons why. One, you look at the trainer, Mindy Willis. This is a trainer that traditionally does very well at Sam Houston. Horse Racing Nation's put out a lot of stats at the beginning of this meet. Mindy Willis is one of those trainers that tends to be under bet but overperforms. And so you typically find a lot of value with her horses. More importantly, horses coming off this type of layoff, and this is a significant layoff, hasn't run since June, but horses coming off this type of layoff, 30% winner with a $7.32 ROI. Again, Gino, I'll give you $2. You give me $7.32.
Sure.
So, and this is a horse where I just think like the favorite in this race is Ready Edge, who just broke its maiden last time out, is now stepping up to winners for the first time out. So,
Yeah.
there's I think a legit question there. I mean, typically you don't see horses just make that transition seamlessly, and there's a little bit of a regression. Little Mark, who's going off at 9-2, is coming off an 18-month layoff. My Golden M is 7-2, and I think the biggest, it's probably the biggest competition, but lost the last two at this level by 11 lengths.
Last time, and he's a little bit of a hanger too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I just think this horse at 6-1, you look at the horses that are valued at a shorter odds. Yeah. I'm just not sold on them. And here's a horse coming from a barn you should absolutely trust at Sam Houston, and who previous form absolutely shows the speed and ability to win in this race. So I like Mac Be Quick in the race 4 at Sam Houston on Sunday for $5,000 on Stable Duel.
Remember, on Sunday they have a early first post day racing there.
Yes.
1:45 Central Time. So 1:45 local time at Sam Houston, 2:45 Eastern Time there, first post. I'm going to jump to race number 5, where the stakes races begin. You gave a shout out to Jessica Paquette. I'll give a double shout out. She joined me this week on my show to help me to discuss the races 5 through 10. Was just about to be making her journey out there to Sam Houston. And for now, as it looks, I believe I'm going to be making my way out to Sam Houston in 2 weeks.
Nice.
For Texas preview night. And I think Jessica's going to be back out there too. So I'll get the opportunity to say hello to her, hopefully in person. I've never been out to Sam Houston. So knock on wood, after this weekend, once football's starting to slow down a little bit, I'm going to make sure I try to get that taken care of and get that worked on. But let's jump to race 5, as I've got a play in here. I thought this was a pretty fun race, mainly because it's a turf sprint stakes race, and the 3 horses down towards the 2 horses towards the inside are shortest prices that I don't love that much. 7 Cents absolutely could win for Broberg, and Archidust absolutely could win. I think because of the draw, 7 Cents is going to be forced a little bit. Archidust, I mean, he could beat me. Hasn't raced since August. I just like others in here a little bit more. I mean, even right next door, I'm going to throw Americanus into pick 4s and pick 5s. I don't know if I'll use him in a stable duel situation, but if you just excuse the race going long on the turf, his other grass race was a 6.5 furlong win at Kentucky Downs, where he was forwardly placed throughout. And from a class standpoint, he's not really dismissed. But the horse that I like the most in here is the 7, Tut's Revenge. Tut's Revenge has been going longer for, the bulk of his career. He's a really nice horse, and he kind of has route speed going a little bit longer. But the race that I love is the 5 furlong race at Sam Houston. You noticed last year he was in, hi, Milo. Milo's getting ready to head out of here. At Sam Houston, he was in the John B. Connolly. And so that was a little different for him, right? He goes 1.5 miles, and then they cut him back to 5 furlongs.
Hello.
Right? I mean, so after the cutback, he was sitting a little bit more. He actually dead heated for the win that day at 10-1. I would love him to get a similar type trip in here, because we know that like fitness won't be an issue for him. He's not nearly as fast as some of the other sprinters in here. I think he should get a pretty good trip. Enough of the positional speed to kind of keep him in range, but we know he can pass because he's shown us that he can. So I thought Tut's Revenge, who is a really nice price, 12-1 on the morning line, only going to cost you $750 in that Pulse Power Turf Sprint. This used to be the name that Jason Beam and I would like snicker at with each other every year. It used to be called the FU Turf Sprint. The Frontier, I think it was the first utilities turf sprint. So in the abbreviation, it would be the Sam Hughes FU Turf Sprint. It'd be like, oh, really? What did I do to you? Jeez. So I always have to laugh about the little boy that still lives inside of me that sees something like this. Oh, FU,
Hey, I went my undergrad alma mater, which you can actually see right over my shoulder, Furman University.
There we go.
Our cheer F you one time, F you two time, F you all the time. That was what we cheered at football games. And yes, we do have a football team. And actually, you love football, so I know you'll appreciate this. The starting quarterback and one of a guy that I knew pretty well when I was at Furman University, Billy Napier, is now the head football coach at the University of Florida.
Wow.
So there is always
Small
a connection
world.
there.
Wow.
Yep. So
Real
yeah,
cool.
so I was pretty surreal when I was like, oh, Billy, I know that guy. Like I used to hang out in his dorm room. Now he's the head coach.
Awesome.
So
Anyway, I've got at least one more for
Yep.
Sam Houston. What about you? Where do you want to head?
I got one more. Let's go next door to race 6.
Okay.
And I like the 5 horse here, Down Cold, and is going to get you 15-1. And
Nice.
why do I like this horse? And this horse is going to get bet down because it's a Steve Asmussen horse at Sam Houston. And he's got his preferred number 1 jockey at Sam Houston on the mount in Elliott. And so this horse, the connections are going to, I mean, this horse is going to get bet down significantly. This is a horse that perked up huge on turf last time out and is now stepping into certainly a far more significant spot here in terms of stepping up in class. You know, that optional claimer 50,000 last time out was, you know, it was a good race. This is just, in general, I love trying to find value in races like this, where there's a horse that has very limited grass experience, has done it maybe once. You see that huge eye-popping number, and that 70, it's on the lower end maybe of some of the contenders in terms of what the others are throwing out there in terms of buyer speed figures. But this is a horse that should only improve. I think you're only going to see an improvement here. The comparison I would make actually early on is a horse that I know you know pretty well, Gino, out in the West Coast. It's a horse like Friars Road that made that kind of initial move to turf and then stepped up into a graded stakes and ran huge and finished in that very tight photo with United and Acclimate in a grade 2. I think it was the John Henry turf. And, but came off at a huge number, like 12-13-1. And so I just see Down Cold being a horse that really perked up on turf, clearly got on his preferred surface, has outstanding connections that are going to get bet down. So 15-1, that's going to cost you $500 on Stable Duel. This is a horse that's going to go off a lot lower than 15-1, just because people are going to see Steve Asmussen and Elliott and press, at least press a show bet or a place bet. So again, I think this is a horse that can get a piece, and I just like that those odds from a morning line standpoint.
Down Cold 15-1. That's a great price there for Matt. I'll give you one more play at Sam Houston for Sunday, and I will let everybody know if you need a little more help for Sam Houston for this Sunday card. I went through the full card on the podcast. That's what G said. Jessica Paquette joined me to talk races 5 through 10. And Matt, if you want to join us, I'll just invite you right now, and don't worry if you can't. But on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, Andrew Champagne and myself are going to do a live stream where we go through the card for Sunday morning for Sam Houston, and we kind of see if there are any changes. We'll look at what's going on for Sunday, and we'll dive into a couple past performances. So if you want to hang out with us,
I'm all in. Love it. Love a little champagne on Sunday morning. Might need to get a mimosa and and also I'm going to be snowed in here in Northern Virginia. So fantastic.
It's not like
got nothing better to do.
Not like you're going anywhere. We'll get ready. We'll help everybody get set up for, what could be. And I know you're a fan too. We haven't talked enough wrestling, but this weekend we've got Saturday, the Pegasus and the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And then Sunday we've got the Sam Houston Ladies Classic and all their stakes races, and then the 2 conference championship football games. Just a fantastic weekend of racing and of sports all over the place. So
happy that I have crappy weather to excuse my sloth-like behavior.
Right,
just sitting in front of the TV for 8 straight hours. Yes,
just kick back and don't worry at all. So hopefully we can make a little money here on Sunday at Sam Houston. And one of the horses that I'm going to look at is the number 11 Barista in race number 10, the Jersey Lily. They're going to go 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course here. So you look at Barista, who last year, she was starting to get pretty good. You'll notice early on in the year, they took a shot in the Silver Bullet Day. That race was pretty tough. She was behind Super Sensational in there. And then they start figuring things out in the grass. These races here, the Edgewood, where she's behind Giftless, that's actually a pretty good effort.
Yep.
comes back in the Regret, wasn't bad, has kind of some sneaky trouble in there. Then in June, there's some kind of a physical issue because she doesn't race from June to October. So I'm excusing the Tepin race. She comes back in October at Keeneland. She runs really well that day, but then again, she's off for a couple months. She kind of at Fairgrounds, she was inside. She was kind of tucked towards the inside. She got a nice opening, but sometimes it's one of those things where the rail opens and it looks like a horse gets this dream run through, but we don't really know the angle, or it's just sort of hard to, those horses don't really want to hit that hole, all that much. And it was kind of one of those situations where I didn't really hold it against Barista all that much. So she's 12-1 on the morning line. She picks up a fantastic local jockey here in Lane Luzzy. And the thing about Luzzy, where I've been more impressed with in years prior, Matt, I always knew he was a very good speed rider, but I've been more impressed with him getting horses to take back. He did the other day recently. He came flying from the back with the horse going along on the turf, which was really impressive. So he's starting to figure out how to do everything, right? Everything. And so with a horse like Barista, I think they'll probably be forwardly placed, but maybe sitting just a little bit off, second off the bench at a nice price, will not cost you a whole lot to use in your stable dual lineups. 12-1, only going to be $750 there in your lineup. So that is for Sunday. We've got Friday, we've got Saturday, we've got Sunday action for you all weekend long on Stable Duel. Matt, we missed our buddy Barry this morning. Shout out to Barry. It's always a blast hanging out with him, but he's got some business to take care of this weekend. And I know we both do too, because we're going to be focusing in on these major contests. Give us your plugs one more time. Tell us where we can find you on social media and everything that you got coming up this weekend.
Yep, absolutely. So you can always find me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I have the Win Place Show podcast and YouTube channel. So you can, I always have graded stakes previews that come out every single Friday. And then I also have podcast episodes that come out Monday where I do race recaps, where we look at what happened over the weekend. I also like to hold myself accountable. So we talk about what I got right, what I got wrong, all that good stuff. And like I said, from all over the country. And then on Wednesdays, I do horse racing news, which honestly, the last few weeks has just been like a lot of Naira Baffert stuff, but there's a lot more to that. I mean, I usually cover, updates on tracks and trainers and jockeys and horses and siring news and things like that. So always have something there. And then, looking forward to joining you guys on Sunday for the Ladies Classic at Sam Houston. So thanks for including me. Love it.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much. And we'll remind everybody about that coming up again in the next couple days. Good luck on Friday. I'll be back a little later on today. If you're someone who's interested in sports and horse racing like this, there are free contests at Santa Anita every Saturday and Sunday. They're Pick'em prop contest. If you go to pick'em.santanita.com, they combine sports games and horse racing. So there'll be 12 questions you have to answer. One of them will be something like, which race on the card at Santa Anita will produce the highest payout? Then you'll have a question that'll ask, what's going to be the highest number? The Tampa Bay Lightning total goals, Flavian Pratt total wins on the card, or, so they combine. They're really fun. If you win, it's $500 and it doesn't cost you anything to enter. And if you play every contest and you build up points, they actually give prizes towards the end of the meet for most points scored. So even if you don't win, but you keep playing over and over and build up your points, you will get an opportunity to win some money. And hopefully you're going to have some fun along the way. Matt, buddy, I always love these Friday mornings now. It's a great way to start my day, checking in with you, checking in with Barry, and seeing how everybody's approaching the weekend. Good luck in all your plays.
Good luck to you, Gino. Always great to see you, and can't wait to see you again Sunday.
Don't forget about that big contest Saturday, the Pegasus World Cup Challenge over at Gulfstream Park. $50 to enter, $40,000 in cash prizes. Get those entries in and play, race, win.